Hi everyone, welcome to Kay's Cakes, the show where I veganize your favorite recipes. So today we are going to make some super fudgy brownies. So let's do that. First step for any baking goodness is to preheat your oven. So for these brownies we're going to preheat to 350. And I'm also going to line my pan. So this is an 8x8 baking pan, which will get you about 9 brownies depending on how you cut it. I'm just going to line it with parchment paper so it'll be easier to get them out. Well, actually the best way to do this, because it's a small pan, I'm going to rip this in half. I'll put one going each way, so they make like a cross on the pan. And the reason that we use parchment paper and not wax paper is because parchment paper is lined with silicone, which will not melt in the heat. Wax will melt in the heat, and it ends up sticking to your bread or, you know, whatever you're baking in there, which I have experienced a couple times, and it's not a fun time. All right, here in my glass bowl and pop it in the microwave. While that's going, I want to measure out 1.5 cups of sugar. I'm just using regular white granulated sugar. Some people don't consider it vegan, but that's what we have. I'm actually going to use my half scoop because that one's a little too big for this jar. So I'll do, that's 1/2 and 1 and 1.5. So I didn't melt my butter ahead of time because we're going to whisk it in with the sugar. We want it to be hot so it kind of dissolves some of the sugar. Alright, perfect. Look, beautiful melted butter. Just pour it in there. And whisk this together. Okay, so we have that. Next, we're going to add this is going to be basically our wet ingredients, except for the sugar. So I'm going to add 1/3 cup of soy milk. You can use whatever non-dairy milk you like. I just like soy milk. No, that's the wrong one. I use this one. So my big liquid measure does not actually have a 1/3 cup marking, so I have to use my little one. Okay, so there's my 1/3 cup, 1/3 cup soy milk going in. And our last liquid ingredient is vanilla. So we're gonna do 3 teaspoons, not tablespoons, of vanilla. Actually, 3 teaspoons is 1 tablespoon, so you could do 1 tablespoon. It's the same thing. I spilled a little bit, but that's fine. Let's say that was, just put a smidge more. That's about right. And then we'll mix all that together. So these are our wet ingredients. And no egg in this one, right? But not even a substitute. But I think that's why, actually we don't have an egg substitute in this one. So it depends on the recipe. Sometimes eggs are just a binder, and sometimes they are a raising agent. So we have all this liquid is going to bind our flour and everything else together, and we have baking powder as a raising agent, so you don't always need a direct egg substitute. But there are lots of them. You can use things like applesauce, mashed banana, you know, there are powdered eggs that are good for baking, but none in this recipe. So there's our wet. Now we're going to move on to the dry. So I'm going to take 1 cup flour, and some recipes ask you to sift the flour, like for things like cakes. It just makes for like a lighter cake, but we're making brownies, so we don't need to sift anything. So there's my 1 cup flour, and we're going to add cocoa powder, 3/4 of a cup of cocoa powder. I'll use my 1/4 cup. Go 1, 2, 3, and 3/4 of a tablespoon of baking powder. Not tablespoon, 3/4 of a teaspoon. 3/4 of a tablespoon would be way too much baking powder. 3/4 of a teaspoon. So there's my 1/4 teaspoon. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. And a 1/4 teaspoon salt. So I preemptively am throwing things in the sink. I wasn't done with that. We'll just add a little salt. I like the sea salt, but it can be a little bit large. You end up getting big chunks of salt. Okay. And mix dry into wet. So we're just going to combine these all into one bowl. And mix. So we should get a nice chocolatey, beautiful brownie batter. It'd be better to do with the whisk, but now I'm committed. She's committed. Make sure it's all mixed. See that nice and thick? That means we're gonna get super fudgy brownies. I know we already have cocoa powder in here, but what is a batch of brownies without chocolate chips? So I have this brand, Enjoy Life. These are vegan and gluten-free, allergy-friendly. It's honestly one of the only chocolate chip brands I can find that is vegan, that is readily available. So I got these ones at a Whole Foods, but I've also seen them in Safeway, so they should be pretty accessible. If only I could open the bag. That is why we have knives in the kitchen. Normally I would just use scissors, but my kitchen scissors have vanished. So the recipe says to use 1 cup. I, however, am a chocolate fiend, so I'm not even going to measure them. Just dump those right in there. Especially because they're mini chocolate chips. I can't find the regular size ones. And we're going to fold them. Fold them gently in like this, instead of mixing. I love brownies because you don't have to use an electric mixer. There are so many recipes that would be easier with an electric mixer, and I do have a hand mixer, but I don't have a stand mixer. It makes me very sad because I don't have a bread hook. I can't. I have a hard time making bread. But we have a tiny working space, so that's what it is. All right, now our batter is all mixed, so we are going to put it in our parchment paper lined pan. Oh, it's really thick, so you just kind of have to scoop or scrape it out of the bowl. You could also probably grease the pan with like a spray or oil, but these ones need to be transported today, so I'm putting them in with the parchment paper so we can take them out of the pan later and take them with us. So I got it all in my pan. I'm just gonna spread it. I'm sure that crinkly paper sound is great. I'm gonna see how many chocolate chips are in it. I am excited about this. Look at that. Okay, and that's it. We're just gonna pop these in the oven for 25-30 minutes. So set my timer. Let's start with 25, right? Because you can always go longer, but you can't unbake it if they're overdone. All right, so let's see how those look when they come out of the oven. While the brownies have been baking, we were talking about the sugar. So refined sugar is usually refined with bone char, and that's why some people don't consider it vegan. And we are looking into what to use for future bakes to make it wholly vegan, since this is a vegan baking show. But I do have a bag full of white sugar, and that's why I'm using it. There we go. All right, let's see how our brownies did, guys. Ooh, yum. They look done, but we're just gonna do a test. Get a knife. And stick it, I'm gonna move this. Stick it right in there. Not quite done. Unfortunate. So they will need to go back in for about 5 more minutes. Always use your oven mitts. Don't burn your hands. Dessert is good, but not worth 3rd-degree burns. Alright, while we're waiting for the brownies to bake, everybody go comment what's your favorite recipe, and I will veganize it for you in an upcoming video. I want to shout out my production team right now, and by production team I mean people I live with and see a lot, and we're working in this very tiny space together. Oh, okay. Let's check attempt number 2 on these. And, you know, that's normal for baking. You just need a little extra time sometimes. I mean, they look super wet. I have to get a different knife because I ate the batter off the last one. Is that batter or is it a chocolate chip? I'm gonna try a different spot. I think those are good. Alright, those are good. So I'm gonna turn the oven off. And now we have to wait more because they need to cool down. As tempting as it is, don't eat your dessert straight out of the oven because they're hot. So we have to let it cool down. So I'm gonna set another timer for about 30 minutes, and then they'll be cool enough to take out of the pan. Do a little powdered sugar dusting on there. Like, comment, subscribe. We have fun projects coming up. If you are invested in Marvel movies, you want to check out our videos that will be coming out at some point. And even if you're not vegan, you can always reduce the amount of animal products that you are using. I promise it tastes just as good.